My ex-wife, who cheated and abandoned our family years ago, showed up at my door with another man's kid, wanting to be a family again. I slammed the door in her face. Hey everyone, before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. My ex-wife Angela, 36, and I, 37 male, met when we were in our mid-20s. I was around 24 at the time, and we were working at the same firm. After being in a relationship for 2 years, we got married. Within 3 years of marriage, we had 2 daughters, now 9 and 7 years old. The second pregnancy was unexpected, and Angela wasn't happy about it. I told her it would be okay with me if she wanted to terminate the pregnancy, as I didn't want to put her through anything she didn't want. But she chose to keep the baby. After our first daughter, things were still great between us. We were as in love as we could be. But that changed after the second pregnancy. Angela became really moody and irritable and constantly picked on me or our eldest. I figured it was due to hormones and tried to make peace with this new version of her. We thought it would change after a while, but it only got worse. My daughter and I learned to walk on eggshells around her. I was taking care of everything, even though she was supposed to be a stay-at-home mom. She had quit her job of her own volition after our first kid, and initially did all the housework along with taking care of our eldest while I worked. When she got pregnant again, we hired a housekeeper because she said she was too tired to handle the housework and the kids. I agreed, even though it was slightly out of our budget, because I didn't want to inconvenience her, especially not during pregnancy. I assumed she would return to looking after the house and kids once our second daughter was born. Also, let me be clear, I wasn't one of those husbands who didn't do anything around the house. I helped out however I could, even though I was exhausted from work. After she gave birth, I thought she would take a few months to recover and then bounce back. But several months passed, and she showed no signs of changing. She remained just as cranky and irritable and refused to do any work around the house. She would sit at home all day watching television and didn't even play with the kids. She paid our neighbor to take them to the park occasionally. I don't mean to sound resentful, but I did feel that way. I was working day and night, and she wouldn't even do the bare minimum at home. It was also proving quite expensive to pay for a housekeeper to handle all the cooking, cleaning, and other chores, while I had to manage all other expenses and still try to save for our daughter's future. That was becoming almost impossible. So, 6 months after our younger daughter's birth, I decided we couldn't go on like this and had to talk. I asked my parents to watch the girls for a day, and they agreed. I sat Angela down and told her I understood she was tired after 2 pregnancies, but I needed her help. I explained that we couldn't afford to keep the housekeeper at her current salary and asked her to return to doing at least some of the chores so we could renegotiate. She instantly refused, claiming she was too busy watching the kids and that I should start earning more instead of blaming her for our financial condition. I tried to explain that I was doing my best, but she needed to do hers too. I also mentioned that she wasn't really watching the kids. They were mostly left to sit with her in front of the television all day, as the housekeeper had once told me. That was a mistake. Angela flared up and accused me of spying on her. She went on a tirade, saying she wouldn't stand for this anymore. She said she was done being pushed around and doing all the work while I did nothing but sit at a desk. She claimed it was my fault we couldn't afford a housekeeper and said it was pathetic that I had to beg her for help. She tried to twist everything to make it seem like I was the unreasonable one. The fight escalated. She called me a loser who couldn't afford to be with a woman like her, and I retaliated by calling her a lazy cow who had already failed at being a good mother, considering how scared our eldest was of her and was now failing at being a wife. That remark really got to her. She shoved me hard and I fell back onto the coffee table, shattering the glass and injuring myself. I had to be rushed to the ER. She kept crying and apologizing, but I was done. Luckily, the injuries were only surface level, but it could have been worse. I no longer trusted Angela. I told her she had to move out. I couldn't trust her around the kids. I asked my parents to look after the girls until Angela left. For a week, she protested and said she would never let it happen again. I almost filed for divorce, but she begged for another chance. Eventually, we agreed she would go live with her parents and undergo therapy. Only when a medical professional cleared her would I consider letting her come back. Clearly, something was wrong. Happy people don't act that way, but she said she wanted to work on it. I didn't want our daughters to grow up without their mother, so I held off on the divorce and agreed to give our marriage a second shot. We started marriage counseling while living separately. Her therapist said she had been suffering from postpartum depression with severe anger issues that had escalated when she shoved me. It was a wake-up call for both of us. For almost a year, things seemed to get better. Around the 6-month mark, I allowed her supervised visits with the kids. She was slowly becoming her old self again, and I felt hopeful. But then she suddenly stopped coming to counseling sessions without explanation. She also stopped responding to me. I kept trying to talk to her, but she just said she needed space. I stayed in touch with her therapist, who assured me she was making progress. Still, I felt something was off. After weeks of being ignored, I decided to visit her at her parents' house. I had avoided it before because her parents didn't like me. They blamed me for everything. Angela had told me not to visit, saying it would only create drama. but I had to know what was going on. When I got there, Angela wasn't home. Her parents told me they weren't allowed to tell me where she was and slammed the door in my face. That made me even more suspicious. I called Angela several times, but she didn't pick up. Then I decided to check the backyard, where her parents usually kept the kitchen door open. I didn't need to go that far. I saw Angela on the swing in the backyard, making out with a man I didn't recognize. The guy pulled away when he saw me. By the time Angela turned around, I had already started walking to my car. She tried to stop me, but I wasn't listening. I was in shock. She tried to grab me. I shook her off and told her not to touch me. I drove home, blocked her everywhere, and told my parents I needed a lawyer. I didn't hear from her again until we had to meet with a court-appointed mediator for our divorce. By that time, I had completely shut down emotionally. I was just functioning for the sake of my daughters. I didn't even feel anything when I found out that Angela was terminating her parental rights. She had decided she didn't want to be with us anymore. She wanted to be with the guy. Let's call him Sean. He was her childhood friend. They had reconnected when she moved back in with her parents, and she had fallen in love with him. Her parents supported this. Apparently, they had always wanted her to end up with Sean and were glad she was finally choosing herself and her happiness, as if she had ever done anything else. The divorce was a long process. Even though she had cheated on me, she still wanted alimony. My lawyer and I fought hard and ensured she got nothing. Everything was rightfully mine. I had paid for everything while she did nothing but watch TV all day. It's been 5 years since the divorce came through. Those months were some of the hardest times of my life, but I didn't break because I had to look after my daughters. They had no one else but me. My parents were incredibly supportive, and I'm forever grateful for their help while I balanced work and parenting. Life has treated me well since then. We moved into a bigger house. I get paid better now, and I don't have to spend money on anyone apart from myself and my daughters. My parents live nearby and visit often. I have friends who love me, and my daughters are happy. That's all a man needs, and I'm so thankful that life turned out this way. Or at least it was, until Angela showed up again. A few days ago, the kids were at school, and I was just about to leave for work. When I opened the doorbell rang, and Angela was standing outside with a boy beside her. The boy couldn't have been older than 3 or 4 years old, and I knew that this had to be Angela's son. I was taken by surprise when I saw her standing outside my door and was still trying to process it when she started crying and said that she was here to apologize and make things right with me. She told me that she was finally ready to be a family again and give our marriage another chance. I couldn't believe that she was back here after all these years, and now she wanted to give our marriage another chance, like it was up to her to make that decision. Within a split second, I made up my mind and decided to shut the door and turn her away because I didn't want to get into whatever this was. But before that, I told her that this was not her family anymore. I had stopped being her husband the day she cheated on me with Sean. The divorce was just a legal obligation, and she herself had given up custody of her daughter. So now, she had no right to refer to us as her family. After I said that, I shut the door and told her to go away because I didn't want her anywhere near my property. I would have cursed her out as well because I was really angry, but I refrained from doing it because of the little boy. I could hear her wailing outside my door for a couple of minutes after I shut her out, but I decided to ignore it. And once I made sure that the coast was clear, I went off to work. I tried really hard not to think about it because that would just weaken my resolve, and I couldn't afford to let that happen. I almost succeeded in forgetting that Angela had even showed up at my house, but as soon as I came back home from work, I received a call from my parents demanding an explanation as to why I had turned her away. They told me that Angela had contacted them after I turned her away and shut the door on her face, and that she had been devastated. My parents said that they were the ones who had given her my new address and told her to visit me since she was in the process of getting divorced from Sean and finally had a chance to make things right with me. They told me that Angela had reached out to them about a month ago, and this had been in the works for quite some time. My parents believed that it was about time that I thought about my kids because my daughters needed a mother, and there was no better mother than Angela. So they decided that she deserved another chance and told her where to find me and what to say to me. I got really mad at them because it was not their place to forgive her and decide to give her another chance without even asking me if I would be okay with that. It could have been really bad if the kids had been at home, and it was really reckless of them to pull something like this. So I told them off, but they refused to acknowledge that they had made a mistake because they had helped me during my divorce by taking care of the kids. Even now, occasionally, they do look after the kids, and they believe that whether or not I wanted to patch up with Angela was up to me, but they had an equal right to decide what was best for the kids, and I couldn't take that away from them. I thought it was ridiculous of them to believe that because at the end of the day, they were my daughters and not theirs. And while I respected them and would always be thankful for what they did for me during my divorce, I don't think it was their place to let Angela back into my life again. We got into a bit of a fight, but they told me that I was the one who was out of line here and was being selfish by not giving Angela another chance. They told me that they had done their due diligence and were sure that she was a different woman now and deserved to be a part of my daughter's lives. Even when I reminded them that she had signed her rights away, they said that it was insulting that I believed they would put my daughters or me in harm's way and accused me of ruining their lives by being too arrogant to accept that they needed their mother. It's been a few days now, and I don't think I was out of line or selfish because I've thought about this a lot. I'd rather not give my ex-wife a second chance at being a mother. Update 1. About a week has passed since Angela showed up at my door with her son, and recently I found out the truth about her relationship with my parents. It's honestly so disturbing that I don't even know where to begin, and I'm still struggling to process it myself. It's mind-boggling how all of them have betrayed me without batting an eye. Apparently, not only were they the ones who had told her my new address, but they had been in touch with her all along. I had cut her out of my life after the divorce, but they hadn't, because they believed that she would come around at some point. They wouldn't talk much, only once a month maybe, but that was enough for me to feel betrayed. She had made Angela sign away her rights after she was served with the divorce papers, and had given her an ultimatum to either abandon her family and make a new life with him, or she could keep in touch with her kids and fight for their custody. But that would mean that she would have to leave him behind. It had been a difficult choice for her to make, according to my parents, but she ended up going with Sean to make a new family with him, instead of sticking with the family that she already had. My parents said that Angela had contacted them shortly after I filed for divorce to tell them about her situation and asked them to help her because she wanted to still stay in contact with her kids. Privately, she had told them that she'd been backed into a corner by both of us, and either way, she wouldn't be able to see her kids. Because I had been fighting for full custody with supervised visitation rights, while Sean had instructed her to abandon her kids altogether. Even if she did fight for custody and went against Sean, the chances of her getting partial custody were slim, given the circumstances of our divorce, and also her history of having issues controlling her temper. So fighting for custody seemed like a waste of her time and resources. There was a very real chance that she could lose both Sean and custody of our daughters in the end if she decided to fight. And that's where my parents came in. She met them in private and practically begged them to let her stay in touch with her daughters and help her out by acting as the bridge between them. She was aware that once she signed her rights away, she would not have any visiting rights, let alone supervision. But my parents would, and they planned on exploiting that. They successfully did so and fooled me for ages by going behind my back to allow Angela to meet our daughters. And they did so because Angela's situation struck a chord with them, and they realized that they couldn't, in good conscience, keep a mother apart from her kids. Stabbing their own son in the back for years, however, didn't hurt their conscience one bit. They told me that whenever I would drop our kids off at their house, they would invite Angela over and let her spend time with them. My kids never told me that they were meeting their mom because my parents would bribe them with toys and candy, so they would keep their mouths shut about this. Anytime I would ask them about what they had done at their grandparents' house, my daughters would tell me that they played games with my grandparents and their friend. I always assumed that they must be talking about my parents' actual friends, whom I already knew. But apparently, that's what my parents had told my daughters to refer to their mother in case I asked them about their day. I couldn't believe that my daughters had been lying to me as well, but I forgave them because they're just kids, and also because Angela and my parents had really manipulated and intimidated them into keeping quiet. After I learned the truth from my parents, when I asked my daughters if they had been meeting their mother behind my back, they started crying and told me that they couldn't tell me because they would be punished by God if they did so. Angela and my parents must have really drilled it into their heads that there would be dire consequences if they told me the truth, and that's why they had been so secretive and vague all along. I also felt like a terrible father for never asking my daughters which friends of my parents they were spending time with, because it just as easily could have been someone else, someone more dangerous than Angela, and I never would have found out. But I'm going to put an end to it now, since I'm getting a restraining order against all of them. I already have written proof of this, since my parents sent an email to me to tell me the truth. A couple of days after my fight with them, they had believed that the email was going to make me realize how desperate Angela was to remain a mother to her daughters without losing the alleged love of her life, and that would somehow make me forgive everyone involved. But all that it did was make me realize that everyone here was a nasty little liar, and I couldn't trust anybody anymore. It's also ironic how Angela signed away her parental rights and had to resort to meeting our kids in secret like it was a crime, all because Sean didn't want her to have any contact with her previous family. And he was supposed to be her one true love. But now even they were getting divorced, and all that turned out to be for nothing. They even had a son together. But according to my parents, Sean wanted nothing to do with her or his kid now, because he had received a job offer and was moving away in a couple of months. Angela had started working again recently, and their son had started kindergarten here, so she didn't want to move with him, which is why they had been fighting for a long time. It had finally all come to a head 3 months ago, when Sean told her that he was done and he was taking that job and moving out. He didn't have any interest in being a family man anymore because it clearly meant that he would have to sacrifice his own future and happiness just to make her happy, and he wasn't ready to do that. This was all meant to make me feel sorry for Angela, but the only purpose that it served was making me feel like justice had finally been served. I have already spoken to my lawyer, and the petition for the restraining orders has been filed. My daughters and I have also had a proper discussion about all of this, and I have told them that moving forward, they will never be seeing their grandparents or their mother again. And they seem to be okay with it for now, but we're still going to go to therapy and try to work things out because I'm sure that this is going to be difficult for them and probably has been quite difficult for them for the past 5 years. But this all ends now. Update 2. Hey guys, thank you so much for all the concern and support here. I'm really grateful that so many people have been sending lovely messages and blessings to my daughters. My parents and Angela have been served with restraining orders and are supposed to appear in court in a few days. I don't know how they feel about any of this because I have blocked them on every possible platform, and I've also told my friends not to speak to them in case they contact them. I have also amped up the security around my house and have been working from home for a couple of days. I had spoken to my daughter's school authorities and told them about the situation too. Initially, I didn't intend on letting them go to school for a few days, but I didn't want their education to suffer because of Angela and my parents. So now, teachers are supposed to keep an eye on them and not let anyone apart from me pick them up after school. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that they can't get to us because I'm sure they will try. So far, it's been good, and I'm hoping that after we get that restraining order, they still continue to stay away. Update 3. Hi, so this is going to be a really short update, but we got that restraining order, and for the next 5 years, all 3 of those maniacs are going to have to keep their distance from me and my daughters unless they want to face terrible consequences. Obviously, I'm still keeping all the security measures that I took in place for a while, because the last I saw them, they looked really pissed, and I don't want to risk anything. My daughters and I are attending regular family counseling sessions, and I think that we are going to make a lot of progress in the coming few months. We have already made considerable progress, honestly. All I want now is for my daughters to be happy, and that's it. So please keep sending us your best wishes. We need it.